Here we are. What is happening, mediocre people of YouTube? What's happening, mediocre people? Oh man, it's been one of those nights. I'm freezing. I was up in the garage and it's really fucking cold here. We're anticipating a snowstorm. In fact, the public schools that are here in this area, they already called off. There's not a flake of snow on the ground, but I guess we're anticipating snow, possibly, maybe, could be, but we don't know. It's got to be the worst weather report for Southeast Michigan in a long time. I mean, first off, you didn't hear nothing about it, but then there was like rumors that there's going to be a snowstorm. I look it up on the weather, and there's like nothing there. And then the weather report on the TV says, "Oh yeah, we get fucking 6 to 8 inches and this and that," and then you didn't hear anything about it. And now tonight, you look on the weather on Google and it says, "Oh, we might get a flurry or two," and then the news is saying 6 inches, and then the fucking schools in this area, they already closed. There's nothing on the ground. There's not a flake of snow. It's pretty cold out, but like I said, I came in from outside, and I'm freezing, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. This is going to be one of my rant videos, and what I want to talk about is reality. Because tonight I was talking to a person, and it's one of these people, and you know what, and I'm not putting anybody down here, but what I'm saying is there's a lot of people that just can't handle reality. They can't handle the truth of the matter. And I'm not putting myself up on a pedestal here. In fact, I'm going to tell you a story tonight about, what happened to me. Thank God it happened to me. And I had to go through a lot of shit to get there, unfortunately. I had to put myself through hell in order to get to the place I am right now, where, even times when I think I'm right, I can look back on it now and very shortly afterwards I can look back and say maybe I am fucked. And a lot of times I catch myself, like if I'm doing something I think I'm right and other people or somebody else is against me and they really think they're right, I'll always try to stop and think, well, wait a minute, maybe I am fucked. And there's a lot of people who can't do that. There's people in my life that can't do that. And it's really important to be able to do that. And I know that some of you guys that are watching, you'll understand what I'm talking about tonight. Being able to accept yourself for who and what you are. Being able to accept your capabilities and your limitations. Being able to truly know yourself and try to keep yourself humble. There's a message coming into the phone. I could just imagine what that's saying. I'm dealing with a person right now who just cannot accept the reality of things, and instead of trying to have a conversation about it, they just want to bring up old things and talk about things that have nothing to do with what the conversation is supposed to be about, But there's a lot of people out there, but I'm going to tell you a story, and I know I've talked about this a little bit in some of my videos, but about 15 or I think coming up on 16 years ago, before that, for about 5 years before that, I had a real bad drinking problem. This is going back 20 years ago. 15 years ago is when I stopped, coming up on 16 years. And I just drank, I had a lot going on in my life, and I had gotten divorced, and I just went on a rampage. I was in my, early 20s, and I don't regret one bit of it. I had by far the greatest times in my life while I was drinking, and and I say drinking, but when you're drinking like that, you're using drugs, you're doing things that you normally wouldn't do because you're already under the influence of alcohol. But like I said, I don't regret any of it because I had the most fantastic times playing music and wrecking buildings and going out of town and being at the beach, and man, I had a fucking blast. But one day, I realized, I'm at home And then just before this, people in my life kind of started pointing it out. It's always family who maybe they themselves have a drinking problem even till this day, maybe even. But nonetheless, it's always family that says, hey man, it looks like you're hitting the sauce way too much, And at the time, I mean, I'm going to tell you the truth, man. I was convinced that everybody did what I did. Everybody came home from work and drank a fifth of liquor and a 12-pack every day. Everybody does that. I was convinced that's how everybody lives. And when I realized that I was convinced of that, that's when it really happened for me. When I, somehow or another, I sat and thought about it, and I thought, oh my God, wait a minute, other people don't do this. And I said, all right, I'm going to try to quit. And I didn't know how, because that's just how I lived my life. I would get off work and immediately grab a, 12-pack of beer and a fifth of liquor and be off, every day. That's just how I lived my life. And the weekends, it was just, as soon as I woke up, have a coffee and then crack a beer and start drinking. And so I said, well, I'm going to need help. So I went to the hospital, and the hospital nearby me had a program that you could go to like 4 days a week for 3 hours a day for a month, I think it was. And I went to this program, damn near got kicked out of it. And the reason I was going to get kicked out of it is because I wasn't humbling myself. I wouldn't accept the reality of things. And one day, I kind of got into it with the head therapist who, God bless him, that guy saved my life. His name is Jim. I'm not going to say his last name. But he really did save my life. We kind of got into it. There was a whole bunch of people there, probably 10 people, 15 people maybe. And we're talking, we're having like a group discussion, and I kind of poked at him, and he looked back at me, and for something he said was like kind of to the effect of he was going to kick me out. And I just flat out asked him, I go, what are you going to do, kick me out? And he said, no. He said, I want to ask you a question. And I said, yeah. And he goes, how many times have you tried to quit drinking on your own? And I said, 5 to 6 times. And he goes, okay, or 4 or 5 times. Which was probably about, 3, 4. But anyway, I said 4 or 5 times. And he said to me, then he said, this is what woke me up. He said to me, he goes, okay, so what I'm saying is that we already know, you've already proven to yourself that your way doesn't work. So what I'm saying is that you're going to either try it my way, or you need to find a new therapy place to go, a new treatment program to go that'll allow you to do it your way. Because I'm not going to just sit here and watch you fail. And at the end of that session that day, we talked for a minute, and he sent me home, and unknowingly he sent me home to do a 4th step, to write out everything that led me to where I was. And then the next day when I got there, I said, here you go. I went into his office, and he actually we spent 3 hours together, just him and I. And I said, here you go. It was like 5 or 6 sheets of paper, front and back. And he goes, okay, read it to me. And I was like, what? And I read it to him, and I'm not going to lie, man, I cried. There was parts of that thing where I wrote, the things that led me to where I was, that I couldn't help it. I was crying, And I don't care, it doesn't matter to me saying that, because what happened to me that day, and for the rest of that therapy, I learned that, what? I'm a human being. I am a heavily flawed person. I make mistakes. I piss people off, I piss people off here on my YouTube channel, And, sometimes there's people that argue with me on here or whatever, and they change my mind about things, But it taught me to be willing to stop and change my point of view on things. And accept, what I was getting to in the beginning of this video is to accept reality for what it is, and then deal with that. Deal with what you can control right now and let the rest go. That was one of my brothers said that to his daughter one time. And that always stuck with me too. That was years later. It's been 15 years now since I've had a drink. I don't drink. It's not a part of my life. I could drink right now if I wanted to, but it's not a part of my life anymore, you know. And I look back on that, and I'm glad, you know, what people say is that another buddy of mine said, well, if it had to be, I'm glad it was then and not now. And I always held on to that too. And then when my brother-in-law told his daughter one time she had drug problems. She actually died from drug problems. But when she was trying to get clean, he said to her, he said, you know, try, just focus on controlling what you can control right now and leave the rest alone. And that's really important. And especially in times of turmoil in your life, in times of when, you know, you're going to go through times in your life where, you know, like my dad told me one time, all these little sayings have stuck with me over the years. My dad said to me one time, I was going through some shit. I think I was getting divorced, and he said to me, you know, God, I just lost it. He said, my father said to me, God, you know, I just lost the thought, my train of thought. You know how that happens as you get older? Oh my God, totally lost it. Man, what did he say to me that time? I'll think of it in a minute. But it was basically kind of the same thing, you know. It's like, life's a bitch, man. And when it really gets hard, oh yeah, the old man said, you know, son, life is gonna throw you fucking curveballs and everything else that sometimes you're just never gonna understand why these things happen, you know. And he was right, and I always held on to that too. But man, when things get hard, you really gotta, you know, humble yourself. You know, understand that, you know, you can be wrong. You know, none of us are. We're all flawed human beings. Me especially. I mean, I am a heavily flawed. I am a really hard person to deal with in life. I mean, for the ladies that have you know been in my life, I am a terribly hard person to deal with. I'm stubborn, and I just am. I know I'm hard to deal with. I am hard to deal with, but you know, but I'm getting what I want, which is, you know, in the end, it's not about getting what I want so much as that it's, you know, I'm living the life that I want to live, and that's important. You know, that's just as important as staying humble, is, you know, doing what you want in this life, and making sure in the end you need to be happy, man. None of us have a bunch of time on this planet. We've got this much time, you know, and everybody on this planet deserves to be as stress free as possible and happy. You owe that to yourself, man. All of you guys, myself included, we all owe it to ourselves to live as stress-free and happy as we possibly can. And that's what it's all about. Now, yeah, it can make you a stubborn person and everything else, but you deserve that. You owe that to yourself, you know. Make sure you're happy. Not a bunch of time on this planet. You know, we lose everybody. We lose, you know, brothers and nieces and nephews and fathers and cousins and sisters, and, you know, we lose that. Life is about losing, man. You know, we're going to lose everything. We're going to lose our health, lose our eyesight. You know, Muhammad Ali said that one time, you know. And what it is just about, you know, living with these conditions and moving on and going and moving another day. But, you know, you have to face the reality of a situation in order to be able to fix it and make yourself happy. Because in the end, usually when you're in one of those situations that's bad, you know, and facing the reality of it is what's going to get you to where you want to be. And just dealing with that reality. Humble yourself. That's what I'm saying. Humble yourself. And for those of you guys who attend AA meetings and NA meetings, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, I haven't been to meetings in a long time, but I recently met a guy, and he's an ex-heroin addict, and he goes to meetings religiously. And you know, for a long time, I haven't been real happy, you know, for this through the fall and the winter, and I do get the seasonal depression. It was real bad back in November. And through Christmas, and then there was just a relief, and I know that has some kind of unresolved issue with my father dying on Christmas Eve, because Christmas Eve, there was a relief, like a weight off my shoulders. So there's something going on there. But anyway, Rick, this guy I met, he goes to meetings all the time, and we started talking, and he said, why don't you come back to the meetings, and I have been thinking about it. And you guys in recovery, and you guys that go to AA and NA, you'll know what I'm talking about. To sit in a room full of guys who you don't know, but if you're a former alcoholic or a former drug addict, or if you're going into recovery, and if you're starting your first day of quitting drinking or heroin or whatever else, when you walk into that room, you're walking into a room with however many people that you don't know. But here's the cool thing about it is they all know you, and you all know their story, okay? And they know your story. You don't know these people from Timbuktu, but you know their story, and they know your story. And and I think that's something we've lost too. In my dad's day, there used to be a lot of men's club. My dad, he belonged to the Knights of Columbus, and there were several like men's groups, that. And you don't see so much of that anymore. And I think that's important, to sit down and really discuss things, because we're all different. We are not equal, as so many people would like to say that, oh, we're all equal, but the reality is that we're not. There are things that I can do better than you can do. There are things that you can do better than I can do. There are things that women can do better than men can do. There are things that men can do that are better than women can do. We're not equal. None of us. There are things black people can do that white people can't do. There's things white people can do that black... We're not equal. We're all human beings, but we're not equal. And instead of, whining and crying about, making things equal, why don't we take advantage of those things? And, that's how you put a group together of people that complement your own weaknesses. When you put a band together, it's great to have somebody. Now, I didn't learn that in music until later on. I was in my younger days playing music. I was all about wanted to be flashy and wanted to be the coolest guitar player. But later on, maybe 5-6 years into it, I realized that it's really cool to have people in the band who complement your own weaknesses, and maybe you complement their weaknesses. Man, that's how you grow a multi-million-dollar business, by thinking like that and facing reality and staying humble. So that's what my video is about tonight. Like I said, I'm dealing with a person right now, and we're kind of arguing back and forth, and this person's got every answer in the world, but they can't get out of their own way. And I'm just trying to be calm and humble and just put the reality out. Let's just deal with the reality of this situation. Here's the reality. You can't do this. I can do this. So let me take care of this, and I'll let you take care of that. But some people, they can't accept that. They can't, they actually, some of them get angry that, for whatever reason, they just get bitter and angry, and they can't take it. There's a lot of people out there who need to feel superior, need to feel better, need to feel smarter. And those people, usually those are the kind of people that you meet in your life where they have to tell you how smart they are. It's like, okay, you know what I mean? We've all met those people that they have a need to tell you how smart they are, And it's like, oh, okay. And, I feel bad for them because obviously it's a self-esteem issue or whatever. And, yeah, as a matter of fact, I was going to mention, I have a subscriber here, and I just told him in a comment I was going to mention him. And this guy's paralyzed from the neck down, and he used to play guitar and everything else. But, and him and I can get into some political debate that, it was getting scary there for a while because, and I had to kind of tune him up and say, hey, let's just look at reality of the situation. And, But on the other hand, I mean, you know, hey, here he is. You know, he's got this disability that basically he can't do anything, but he's doing something. He's on YouTube. He's commenting. He's talking to people. He's doing in life what he can do. You know, I mean, there's a humble person, you know, and maybe that had to happen to him. I really truly believe there's a reason for everything. There was a reason that I was an alcoholic back then, you know, and maybe it was so that I could go to recovery and carry this throughout the rest of my life. Believe me, I'm not good at it. I'm not perfect at it. There are times where humbleness and reality is out the fucking window with me. Because, like I said, I'm a hard pure person to deal with, you know, and but I'll always stop at some point, you know, whatever's going on. If I'm out there, I'm not humble, I'm doing this, I'll always stop at some point and just think about the situation in hindsight. And, you know, sometimes I think back on something and I'll go, oh God, yeah, I really was wrong, wasn't I, you know. And hey, that's cool, man. You know, and I used to tell my oldest daughter when she was coming up through school, she would get upset about, you know, getting things wrong in school. And I said, that's great that you got something wrong in school. And she's looking at me like I'm crazy. And I said, honey, you know, this is the way life works. Mistakes are the best thing that can happen to you because now you know, you already made the mistake. And the mistake that you made wasn't a big deal. But that's how you learn. You learn by making mistakes. I learned how to work on tube amps and do all the shit and play guitar and do all the kind of shit that I'm doing by making mistakes. Believe me, this fucking amp up here arced like a motherfucker, you know, and now I got it working. We're cool. But, you know, yeah, I've made plenty of mistakes in my life. And I'm okay with that, you know. And I think it's important that we all just make sure you're okay with you. You know, check in with yourself from time to time. Like I said, when I went into recovery 16 years ago almost, I was not there, man. And like I said, it humbled me. And that was probably the first time I really took a good look at myself. And I found out, most importantly, I found out exactly who and what I am. And once you know who and what you are, you already know how you're going to deal with a situation. And it makes you a better person. So that's where we're at tonight. That's my rant. That's what I wanted to talk to you guys about. I wanted to check in. I got all kinds of videos that I want to share with you guys, and videos coming up. As you know, I've started working on tube amps and doing some guitar work and kind of contemplating getting a business off the ground, but we'll talk about that another time. For now, all you guys, make sure you're checking in with yourself and living in reality, because otherwise you're living in a fantasy land and it ain't gonna work out. Peace out.